And we are back on a Monday night as we do part 2 of our Monday night double feature. We're always grateful to have this old man with us. Emphasis on the man and the friend, not the old. James Akers, everybody. Good to see you tonight, buddy. How are you, man?
I'm doing fine, Chris. Always a pleasure, sir.
Always a pleasure to you, man. And we got a lot to talk about. I'll get right to it. Now, we talked Thursday night, and that was before the brush-up Friday night with Zelensky and Trump. It happened. I was going down to Jacksonville to do our conference, and it was the breaking news, and it was the story there in Jacksonville with the people we were ministering to, and everybody was sort of buzzing about it. And I know as we signed off the air Thursday night, we were talking about him coming, but I didn't see it coming that this was going to happen. But we're finding out, James, that there was some pre-planning by the Dems. They, I think this was all a setup by them to make Trump look bad. And Zelensky, I don't think, had any intentions of doing anything but what he did Friday. I think it's backfired on him, but I just, what bothers me a little bit tonight is that the left, the media, the Rhino Republicans, and traitors to this country always come down on the side of Ukraine and Iran, and they never come down on the side of the United States. And that's not a good thing for our country.
No, but you know, Chris, it's entirely predictable. The same people who go out of their way to find fault with Trump for whatever, you know, read it one way, and everybody else, about half, half the country reads it the other. I think it's going to be pretty much this way, and it's really a question of who set up whom, because. In his, I think my wife just came in and told me that on Gunfeld tonight that one of their guests was talking about how that Zelensky, when Trump's personal representative went to Kiev to talk to him a few days ago, shouted and berated him to the point that people outside the room could hear it. He gave pretty much the same treatment to J.D. Vance in Munich and also Rubio. So I think and Trump said, well, bring them to our house. And so when he started off on that same sort of thing, then everything was open for people to see. Zelensky completely misread the room. He completely misread his opportunity. Thinks he's more popular in this country than he is. Even afterwards, Brett Baer had him on TV, gave him several chances to apologize for the way he had fouled up the meeting, and he refused to do so. And my personal view is he had no intention of signing the agreement.
Yes.
And he personally sabotaged the agreement, and in my view will continue to do so.
Now, I'll agree with that fully, and I will add that it got worse today on Monday because Zelensky was out there, and I think what really ticked me off, James, even beside what he did Friday, was what he did Saturday, and that is go to Britain, go to Europe, and the Europeans basically stabbed us in the back because they're out there acting like they're this grand poobah standing with the great resistor of Russia, Zelensky, basically thumbing their nose at what happened here in the United States. And then today, Zelensky goes out there and says, I don't want peace, that we're not going to have any ceasefire with Russia. And look, James, like Trump hate him, I get it. I get the fact he's trying to save life here. And I think anybody that's just not a Trump hater, I mean, that you can't convince Trump haters of nothing.
Right.
And I would caution folks out there tonight, if you got a Trump hating family member or a Trump hating friend or a Trump hating church buddy or whatever, you're wasting your breath trying to convince them otherwise. You're just wasting your energy, and let them do their ranting. I used to get upset when I look at Gateway Pundit and see some of the comments of the left and these congressmen and all. I don't even faze me no more. But Trump's trying to keep us out of World War III, and you see what Europe's doing over the weekend. And I told my brothers, I said, this is setting the stage that people are taking sides. It reminds me of World War I, where, you had the Archbishop Ferdinand, and he got assassinated, and the nation started lining themselves with each other, and before we knew it, we had a global conflict. James, that's what Trump's trying to keep us out of. He sees it. He gets it. Vance gets it. But Zelensky don't get it. I think he wants full-fledged war. And what does that say about him? What does that say about the nations of Europe supporting him?
Well, I mean, he made it, Zelensky was actually installed in power as a puppet of the left. And so we ended up shrouding a partially successful comedian with the trappings of power.
That's the truth.
It was the leftist media in this country that worked very hard to make him a hero.
That's so true.
And so he is a creature of the left in this country, and he milked this country for billions of dollars, and a lot of it has disappeared, and he says that they can account for all of it, which is a bold-faced lie. There is upwards of $65 billion or so that's totally unaccounted for, and the Ukraine is just a toilet that flushes money, and it completely disappears into the pockets of those that are in power. If he loses that grip on the office, that's the reason he's canceled elections. If he loses that grip on power, then they're gonna bring him before tribunals.
Well,
and he sees that coming, and he is clinging on to power. His only hope is actually, as terrible as it sounds, to perpetuate the war. And the only way he can do that is for the Europeans to come in an active way in the war. And you're right, we're seeing the window dressing for a global confrontation here.
We are, and look, and again, I want to make a couple of things clear. We do not believe that Vladimir Putin is Boy Scout, and Rubio himself said that they have to act in good faith with Putin. Not that they trust him, but they're going to have to act in good faith, and they'll see what he does. But James, the other thing is that you brought up something that I've heard all weekend too, that Zelensky has got so much corruption that's going on in his government. And I think it's not just Zelensky. I think it's people over here in the United States. I think he has got so much dirt on the Biden crime family, several people in the Democrat Party, several people that have invested illegally, and that would include Mitt Romney and Burisma and things of that nature. And if he goes down, there's a lot of powerful people in this country that may be going down with him, and he knows that, and he's trying to save his hide. And you're right, that's why there are not any elections going on. And again, I can see the moral equivalency of, look, it is hard to explain this because you said it rightly a while ago. If you hate Trump, all of this is Trump's fault. If you see it through common sense lenses, you can understand that you've got a dictator demanding American boots on the ground and basically putting his middle finger up to America after $350 billion worth of aid. That's not even loans. And, what's so hypocritical about what he did this weekend, Europe's making him pay that money back. We're not.
Yeah. The whole thing, the reason all of this has turned into such a slimy mess of snakes is that we are talking about, at every decisional point here, people that are unredeemed. They are acting out their roles in a fallen world. To even suggest that Putin can come out of this thing ahead, he is a thug, a murderer, and you've got to be careful when you're dealing with the devil. And that's exactly the corner that this administration is getting itself painted into. Zelensky is an out-and-out crook.
Yes.
And he is milking the U.S. cow, or has, for all it's worth, and everybody turned a blind eye to it, and now he's come up against a person that's not going to turn a blind eye to it.
Well,
my reservation, looking at it through the U.S. set of lenses, is that everything seems designed to benefit billionaires. If we get strategic minerals and materials out of Ukraine, it's not going to be the American taxpayer that benefits from that. It's going to be these billionaires that all of a sudden have lined up behind Trump. They scrambled all over each other during the inauguration to be seen close to Trump. And that also is something that you need to scratch your head over and say, what is the ultimate outcome of all of that?
Yeah.
And so what we're talking about, we're trying to parse between people that may do right in certain circumstances or whatever, and the truth is they are all fallible human beings trying to come up with human solutions to things that have a very dark and deep spiritual underside.
Let me ask you this about Chris Murphy, the Connecticut senator, and also there's others, that Susan Rice and some of these Obama people that were coaching Zelensky. Look, I know your expertise in the CIA is more analytical, but I do have to ask you, do you believe that was treasonous, what Murphy was doing to basically coach Zelensky into what to do with Trump? Or is it just one of those things that everybody's going crazy about on X, and you think it's a nothing burger and it's no big deal?
No, I certainly don't think it's a nothing burger. But I'm not sure I would label it as treasonous. I would label it as unconscionable.
Right.
How would they have felt if the reverse was true? And during the Obama years, or the Biden years, either one, when Sullivan was trying to accomplish something in terms of foreign policy, that the opposition would actively coach people to act against the interest of the United States. It's just a sign of this crazy world we live in. I think it's unconscionable. I don't think it's a nothing burger, but I really do think it's unconscionable what they did.
Do you think it's? I'm okay. It's not treasonous, but is it illegal? Does it go against the Logan Act?
Um, you know, I'm I'm not sure that you can in out of one side of your mouth say that we have certain constitutional protections for the right of free speech.
Correct.
And then, where is the dividing line between treasonous behavior and free speech, which is one of the fundamental characteristics of our form of government? That's splitting that hair, Chris, is really tough.
I know it is, and it's not. I'm not saying it's easy because I'm with you there. But I also believe that you know the answer to this question. This is a softball toss. If it was Joe Biden sitting in that chair, and a leader of another country that came in that the conservatives liked, and they were coaching him to go after Biden the way that Zelensky did Trump, do you not think that the New York Times and The View and MSNBC Tonight and CNN and the Nothing But Crap Network, they would be calling for people to be in jail? And I'm not so sure that Merrick Garland wouldn't be pressing charges, because there is a double standard in this. And you know that when a Democrat's in office, these kind of things are standing up for freedom. When a Republican's in office, then it's it's the same thing, it's the same argument, but nothing's done. And I mean, I know that that's maybe, again, that is a what do we call that? That is a hypothetical, and I know we don't know for sure that would happen. But if I was a betting man, I'd put some money down on the table on that one. That the reaction would be a lot different tonight if this would have been reversed.
Yeah, oh, no doubt. I agree with that. And a part of what has changed is that Biden and crew benefited from having total control, or at least the ability to manipulate social media and the standard print media. They could always count on them being in their corner, as well as a politicized top level of various bureaucracies in the government.
Right.
And they would have been able to marshal them to spin their narrative. That whole dynamic has changed. The media now still trumpet a basic leftist line, but people aren't listening to them, and they're closing down and having money problems. The heads of all the social media that a few years ago were touting a leftist narrative have now, for their own reasons, come over to Trump, so that the social narrative media has completely changed in the past few weeks.
That's true.
And you have this upper layer in the bureaucracies are ducking for cover and trying to cover their own skirts to prevent investigations into what they have done in the past. The whole dynamic has flipped, and I tell you, it's hard to predict the outcome of this thing, because the lines, if anything, have hardened, and the positions have hardened, the narrative has hardened, and we have only seen what? Trump in office for a month.
Yeah.
And so this is just the beginning.
Well,
and it's going to be fascinating to see where it turns up.
I'll agree. And I will say this, and I'm watching somebody's X post tonight, a Michael Keith, and he makes a great point. He says George Bush Jr. Back in the mid-2000s drove Putin around his ranch in Crawford, and there were some voices that criticized that, but nobody was calling him a Russian puppet. That's what they're basically trying to call Vance and Trump tonight, are puppets, and that we've betrayed Ukraine and so forth. And I'm going to ask you a question. And we're going to move on to something else after this, but if you were talking to President Trump's ear tonight, he's withdrew military aid, and he's basically rumblings that he's about to pull the whole plug because he's not going to let Zelensky go fight a war with our money anymore. He's not going to put boots on the ground. He's not going to give him American support. Do you believe that this is the right move, or how would James Akers solve this? If James Akers was in power tonight, what would you be suggesting to President Trump how he handles this? Because it's a tightrope, because he's getting slammed on one side as being a puppet of Russia. Then on the other side, if he doesn't do anything and lets Zelensky run over him, then he's weak and ineffectual, and he's really sort of caught in between two crooks, two evil individuals, and that's not a good place to be. Not in this case.
No, I agree with you, and I guess the first and foremost point to make is I'm glad I'm not whispering in his ear right now, because this is really a nettlesome issue to try to sort out. But I would say to him to stay the course. His loyalty is to the American taxpayer, not to bail Europe out, or to protect, for that matter, to protect Putin's aggressiveness when it comes to Ukraine. He has to do that tightrope walk between those two monsters, that if he falls off the tightrope in either direction, they're going to swallow him up.
Yes.
And yet, it falls to his lot as the president of the strongest country in the world. He is the only individual that has a chance to mediate this crisis.
I'll agree.
If none of the contending parties will exercise common sense and think that prolonging the war, both parties now see a benefit to prolonging the war. And so, getting them to the negotiating table is a tall task.
Yeah.
It's going to take finesse, and it's going to take spiritual wisdom. And Trump's track record since he was in the real estate world, he falls a little bit short on both of those things. And so it is just going to be interesting to see.
Yeah.
I was listening to a station the other night. Let me make a quick aside here.
Sure.
And there is a book called The Fourth Turning that a lot of conservatives are big fans of this book. And the book, in essence, says that all of the great empires go through a progression of sorts, and about every 80 years they come to a crisis point where there's a calamity that happens. There's a split in public opinion. A country becomes divided, and in that situation, there is always a great war.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a ton of people that think we are heading toward somewhere in the period about 3 or 4 years from now to 2030, a great war, and it's just sort of this natural progression of things, and you know, you can poo-poo that if you want to, but wow.
No, I don't poo-poo it. I think it's very possible, James.
It seems like we are on a one-way train heading in that direction, and whether even if the Ukrainian situation was resolved, there's still the specter of war in the Middle East. There's still the specter of war in Africa. There are still the tensions between China and Taiwan. There are more conflicts going on right now than there has been at any time in history. And you know, whether those conflicts in the years ahead will bubble into something, a major world confrontation. In 1963, John F. Kennedy gave a graduation address, and he said for the first time in history, he says, if we are talking about a global war, all of mankind within 24 hours will disappear. We keep walking up to the edge of this canyon of disaster, and it may be just too much to hope that we don't topple into it at some point. And again, you know, I don't want people to be afraid or to take on fear, you know, but every individual needs to get their lives straightened out, and I mean right now.
Yeah,
it has never been a more dangerous time.
I'll agree, buddy. Listen, a couple of the quick things, and we'll let you go because we're running out of time. The other big news tonight, and it's sort of breaking, and we're sort of following this, and this will probably go into tomorrow, but the head of the New York FBI, and we got his picture up there, he has been fired for being the one that's withheld the Epstein documents. You got about 3 or 4 minutes here. What is your take on... Do you think that they're going to find massive stuff in these files? Do you think these files are still even in existence? Do you think they've destroyed them? What does this firing mean? Is there something that we're about to really get hit with that's going to blow everybody's mind? Or have we already hashed this enough and it's going to be, and I hate to use that word nothing burger again, but what did you take of the New York FBI head being sacked tonight, because they're a little ticked that he's been hiding these documents?
Oh yeah, fascinating. So far, you know, the revelations that have come out of what's been released out of the Epstein files has been just sort of a big so what. And my personal take is this whole thing of transporting the girls down there and the elites in total anonymity, being able to have their way with these young women on an island and being transported by plane, etc., is just indicative of the moral free fall that's in this country, and and people at the very top feel like they can engage in this sort of deviant type of behavior, certainly immoral behavior, and not have to pay any consequences for it. And so we are talking about the creme de creme of American and British, and it goes to Israeli and other countries that thought they could get away with this behavior. Their consciences, Chris, are completely seared. They will do anything to keep their names out of the papers, and there will be one effort after another to bury this story under so many layers of soil that it never sees the light of day, and it's just people with good intentions they just keep running into one wall after another because there are people's whose names, if they were released, would actually, I am convinced, would absolutely shock us.
I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that a bit. That is interesting stuff there, and we will follow this story because I've got a feeling this is going to be percolating here. Hey, one other quick thing. Have you heard anything, and again, you may not have, it's one of those things that caught my attention this afternoon, but I didn't have time to follow it. But Juan Wesley Ruth, he was the second suspect in the second assassination attempt. There are reports that he was reportedly trained in the Ukraine and was working for the Ukrainian government. Have you heard anything along those lines, or is that just scuttlebutt, or have you heard anything about that?
No, Chris, I apologize. I have read absolutely nothing about that. And
okay.
So it'd be ridiculous for me to comment.
And that's fine. And I don't want you to, because we're going to trace that down. But I'll ask it this way as we close. If that is true, okay, and we cannot say that it is, but does that put a whole new face on the assassination's attempt at the golf course? That Ukraine would have sent, maybe not deliberately sent him over here to do it, but would that not be peachy? That you find out the guy that tried to kill you works for the head of the guy that you kicked out of your White House Friday, not being thankful for $350 billion. That'd be a peach, wouldn't it?
It would, but we already know that the Iranians have at least tried to put together a team that would accomplish that same thing, and it just sort of off of all these actors, it just sort of runs off their backs like water off of a duck's back.
Yeah, it does.
But it would be interesting if you can verify that there was a Ukrainian hidden hand behind one of these assassination attempts. So yeah, that would change
the dynamic in a way that, buddy, we'd be on here. I'd have you on every night of the week because we'd be talking about this every night, man. Hey, I appreciate you coming on as always. I've got to say goodnight to these folks, but I do want to get you back on later this week. I'm back home and I'm getting my feet underneath me this week, so we'll be in touch with you, and we'll be watching these stories and so forth. And I always appreciate your insight, man. I really do.
Well, I'm flattered that you even take time to consider what I say, Chris. And it is always a pleasure talking to your audience. And again, my message is, people, get yourselves right. We are not given tomorrow, and it has never been so chaotic as these days we're living in.
Absolutely, buddy. Could not say it better, and we'll talk about that more later this week. Love you, man. God bless you. Have a great week, and I'll see you later down the road this week.
Okay, Chris. Thanks for the opportunity.
You too, James. Good night. James Akers, everybody. Put some fire in that house. And we're grateful that you're with us tonight. It's late. We just got back in this evening, and we're back to Tennessee, and want to thank James for being with us. I want to run over a few news stories with you tonight real quick, and some of these we've already talked about, but there's rumblings tonight that Susan Rice was out there insulting Trump over the Zelensky, and denies that she has was basically doing anything. Here is her remarks on MSNBC today, and roll the tape.
You're not acting grateful enough. You're not being thankful. Donald Trump to the leader of Ukraine. Joining our ongoing coverage, former United States Ambassador to the United Nations, former National Security Advisor to President Obama, Ambassador Susan Rice is here. Ambassador, your reaction.
Well, Nicole, obviously it's a very sad day and an embarrassment for the United States on the world stage. But
I'm going to stop her right there. I can't listen to any more of it. That is what the left is saying. It is a embarrassment to the United States, but Rick Grinnell basically is taking issue with that, and there's rumblings that Susan Rice and them was consulting with Zelensky how and what to do. Molly Hemingway said this. She said, Susan Rice said at the Trump-Zelensky meeting, there's no question this was a setup. She revealed full knowledge of the mineral agreement, complained that it didn't include concrete security agrees, meaning apparently commitment of U.S. troops on the ground. And that is the big thing. That's another thing the media is not putting out there. And Susan Rice went after Molly and calls her a clown and all this stuff. And then Richard Grinnell chimed in, and he said, your guy couldn't even talk to Putin for 3.5 years, which he couldn't. Your policies helped usher in a war in Ukraine, Gaza, and Rwanda, if you remember. And then you lied about Libya. It wasn't caused by a video. You made that up. Donald Trump handed you peace in the Middle East and Europe. And it goes on from there. Let's see if it'll let us see any more of that. It's going to take us, sadly, to another page, so you can't see the whole tweet. But this story is on our timeline tonight at the Telegram room. But I found that interesting and so forth. Here is the big picture right here. This is, of course, Friday. But the story tonight is Trump has paused all military aid, including weapons in transit to the Ukraine. The big story today, Zelensky is saying that the war with Russia is very, very far away. And President Trump has basically said if it's far, far away, you're going to be fighting it on your own. And that is what he stopped tonight. And he's getting close to pulling the money. And this also is on our page. The statement that Trump had to say about it on Truth Social today is basically, quote, this is the worst statement that could have been made by Zelensky, and America will not put up with it for much longer. It is what I was saying. This guy doesn't want there to be peace as long as he has American backing. And Europe, in the meeting they had with Zelensky, stated flatly that they cannot do the job without the U.S. Probably not a great statement to have been made in terms of a show of strength against Russia. What are they thinking? Trump said that on Truth Social. Later Monday, it was reported that a completely fed up Trump had paused all military aid, including weapons in transit. Rapid response, basically, he says, don't you think it was disrespectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States? This is J.D. Vance. Watch this. This is the exchange. This is men among boys. These are two men talking to a pint-sized dictator. Roll the tape.
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come to the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems? bringing people into your military?
Yeah,
And do you think that it's
I will
respectful
answer.
to come to the Oval Office of the
I will
United
answer.
States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your
A
country?
lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know that.
bless. You will not
You
have
gotta-
a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
Come on, Trump.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. Remember
I'm not
this. You're in
dictating.
no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
Go for
We're
it.
going to feel
You
very
will
good.
feel influence.
We're going to feel very
I'm
good and
telling
very
you,
strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed
From the
yourself
very-
to be in a
from
very
the
bad
very
position,
beginning
and he
of the
happens to be
war.
right about
From
it.
the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having
I'm not playing
cards.
cards.
Right now, you
I'm
don't
very
have to play
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're
I'm
gambling
the
with the
president
lives
of the
of
world.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War III.
What do you
You're
think
gambling
about?
with
What do you
World
think
War
about?
III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country.
I'm
And it's
with
back
all
to
respect to
you.
you.
Far more than a lot of people
I'm
said
very
they
respect.
should have.
Have you said thank you once?
A lot of times.
No, this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
you said thank
Even
you.
today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country. I'm talking.
That's why I love J.D. Vance. That's why I love President Trump. Did you hear that? I could play that over a few times tonight. I can't believe I said, do you support President Trump's actions Friday? We got 4% of the audience tonight that says no. I'd like to find out who that 4% is. I'm not going to scream at you. But I'd like you to tell me, please, if you're out there, tell me why you didn't support that. Because you know what President Trump said? We're trying to save your blank. That's what J.D. Vance was probably wanting to say. I'd have said it. We're trying to save your blank and blank. And you're sitting there with your smug attitude trying to tell us what to do. You don't hold the cards, Mr. Dictator. You don't hold the cards. And this is the thing. Zelensky thinks he's dealing with Joe Biden. And he's not. But I'm going to slightly disagree with James just a little bit. And maybe it's not a disagreement, it's just perspective. And he may ultimately be right about the treason. Dennis Floyd brought it up that you are actively working in the way to undermine the interest of the United States with a foreign entity. To me, that's the definition of treason. And if it is proven that Chris Murphy and other Democrats were coaching Zelensky on to go in there and do what he pulled, and I just have to say this, I've listened to the people on The View, MSNBC, you heard Susan Rice, and it's all over some of the other social media outlets that this was a disgraceful, Trump embarrassed the country. You had John Bolton demanding Rubio resign, demanding Waltz resign. Who's John Bolton? John, do you think we care what you say? We don't. That is leadership, what you just heard. And Trump said the $1 million statement. You don't dictate to us what we do. You don't hold the cards with that. You're not going to come over here in this country and disrespect me and this nation and tell me what I'm going to do with my own country and whether I'm going to give you money. And there are rumors, and I don't think they're rumors. I think it's pretty much been given. Molly Hemingway pointed it out in the tweet. He came over here wanting boots. He wants us to, in exchange for that mineral right deal, to promise him money, to promise him boots on the ground. And something that's very hot tonight will freeze over before that ever happens. I don't think President Trump, that's even in the back of his, not just mine, but that's in like never land. That ain't going to happen. That's not going to happen. So, that was leadership. And folks, the situation's very plain. This has got the potential. I'm not saying it's going to. None of us have a crystal ball. We don't know where this is going to be in a week or two. or a month or whatever. But if this thing keeps going and people keep taking sides in this, you've got the makings of World War III over a regional conflict that should have never happened to begin with. And because the refusal of this nation to go to Putin, to go and bring these two together and sit them down and say, stop killing your people, stop killing it. War is a big business of this country. War is a big business of these elites. Bernie Sanders is out there and saying all the comments that are against Zelensky are horrific. Jasmine Crockett claiming Trump is the enemy of the United States. Now, I didn't see the enemy of the United States in that clip. I saw the one that was extorting the United States in that clip for $350 billion. No, it ain't Trump being the enemy. That's leadership. And JD, if you're out there, I could just hug your neck. And by the way, Mr. George Tataki, the homosexual actor of the Star Trek series, he's out there applauding the rioters this weekend that basically forced the Vances to hide in Vermont. They went on a ski trip, so all the crazies up there where Bernie Sanders land is, they were basically out there invading his space and invading his family's free time. They had to move the vice president's family to an undisclosed location where they could enjoy some peace and quiet. But the cockies out there just saying that's just so American. That's so American. I bet it is to you, George. I could say something really ugly, but I'm not going to tonight. I just got this on here. Have you noticed that the left and the loons and the media and the rhinos are always standing with Ukraine? I've seen it on Facebook. I saw people from my own city said, I'm going to stand with the one that got attacked first, without understanding why they got attacked. And folks, if you were the president of the United States, and let's say our neighbors to the south were putting regiments of their army on your border and putting rocket launchers that could reach into maybe San Antonio, reach into Albuquerque, New Mexico, reach into Phoenix, Arizona, on the southern side of Arizona, reach into San Diego in California, and they had the capacity to do that, and they were lining their military up along your border. I'm asking you a very blunt, serious question tonight. What would you do? You'd probably be eating Mexican for a long time, because we would be invading Mexico. They would not do that under a Chris McDonald presidency. They would not do it. They'd be given 24 hours. You get those troops off them borders, or we're coming down, and we will, if this is what if you want to have a good old powwow and you want to have a meeting of the minds, we'll have a meeting of the minds, but you're not going to threaten my people. You're not going to put rocket launchers to my cities. You're just not going to do it. That's leadership. Chris would not be I'm too hot-headed. I would get us into war pretty quick. But it's not really getting us into war. And that's the thing tonight, folks. Trump's not trying to get us into war. He is the only one trying to stop it. He's telling Zelensky, you heard him. He's killing your people. We're trying to keep people from dying. And all these individuals out here that are brainless, putting their Ukraine flags on their profiles and Ukraine flags on their Facebook pages as if that's some kind of moral statement that we're standing for the underdog. No, you're standing for a pint-sized dictator who's extorted this country for $350 billion with a B. And you heard James tonight, folks. They can't even give you an accounting for several hundred billions of that 350. Way to go, Trump. We're going to visit that again. We got some guests coming on this week. Hopefully we will talk about that more. But that's pretty cool. You got to love President Trump. You got to love President Trump. Here is the gentleman that was James Dennehy, was the head of the FBI's New York office. We'll be talking about this. We're going to get Lenny Drop on here, we think, in the next week or so. And we're going to get her in about the Epstein files. And I'm not going to spend a big deal about it, but it is interesting that he has been hiding thousands of these documents for whatever reason. And he is now out. This is Trump today. Trump saying he will not put up with Zelensky's anti-peace rhetoric much longer. And that's the AP. I've read you the statement today. And there's President Trump. And listen to what Trump says to him here.
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are
Mr.
not
President,
strong...
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American...
We've played that. Trump said it again, and I'll just say it right here. I'll let this be it, and we'll take your questions tonight. We got other video, but I want to get your questions for the next few minutes. Trump's telling him, you're playing with World War III. And Trump's right. Now, our poll tonight was, did you support Trump Vance's actions on Friday regarding Ukraine? 97% said yes, 3% said no out of 89 votes. Now, if there's anybody, and you're welcome to your opinion, you've got a question, you got a statement, I want you to put it in the chat room. But if you didn't support it, tell me why. Tell me why. He may want to kill his own people, but he sure as heck is not going to kill our children. Liz, that is so well said. And you know, I don't want him to kill his own people. I don't want to see Russia kill their people. But I sure, as you know what, do not want to see American blood on that soil. And see, we were headed to that. I got no doubt that if Kamala Harris would have taken over the reins of this country, it is very likely we would have had boots on the ground over there soon. I think she was going to pull us into this war. And folks, think about this. We're at $350 billion in 3 years. Where would we have been? We would have given this dictatorship $1 trillion before this is over with. I have no doubt in my mind this is where this was headed. And Liz, your point is super well taken. You know, look, we don't want no blood to be shed. Trump as good as told him that today, Friday. And Trump's telling him this anti-peace rhetoric. And you know, the reason he got kicked out of the White House, Trump's tweet was basically when the Ukrainian president wants to talk peace, he's more than welcome to come back. And until that, he's ready for that, he's not welcome here. And the media took that and they went with their little merry way. And I just want to say it to y'all again tonight, folks. If you got family members and people out there that are trashing Trump over this and he's an embarrassment, don't waste your breath arguing with him. Don't waste your breath arguing with him. Because that's just typical left. That's the left. That's the liberalism. Liberalism's a mental disorder, just like Michael Savage said, and I'll agree with that. But I wouldn't even waste my breath arguing with people like that. No, the only one that I saw that was an embarrassment was the dictator that didn't even decide to get on put on a suit, and it was disrespectful. It was really disrespectful, and we talked about that with James a little bit. Very, very disrespectful. And the least he could have done was dressed up. If he's going to be trashing our nation, at least dress up in a suit and do it. Liz, good point. Good point. There ain't going to be any American blood on this deal. Let's see here. Roger, was it you that said J.D. Vance got my vote for president Friday? I think I'll agree with that. I like this kid. I really do. I wasn't so sure about him. You know, at the beginning, I didn't know much about him, but I tell you what, Mike Pence, he is not. He is no Mike Pence. And that I can say without hesitation. That is good stuff. I'm with you. Peggy says, it's amazing to me how anyone would want to continue this war. Well, Peggy, warmongers always want to continue war. It's a big business. It brings money. There's a spiritual component to this. Look, folks, I don't blink an eye saying this. Satan is the author of this kind of feeling. Satan is an author of the bloodshed. Satan likes to steal, kill, and destroy. Demon spirits inspire nations to go to war with each other. There is no other reason other than that. And people say, well, it's political, or it's money, or it's territory. It's still demon spirits. They drive these leaders to do exactly what Russia and Ukraine are doing. They drove Hamas to do what they did to Israel. And, you know, I will say this. I know people have tried to draw a, what's the word I'm looking for? They're trying to to make both situations equitable, meaning it's the same issue with Israel and Hamas as it is with Russia and Ukraine, and it's not. Ukraine posed a exponential threat to Russia and what they were trying to do in NATO. I'm not saying that Putin was all pure in his motive for attacking Ukraine. I'm sure there was territorial desires for what he did. This is not a pro-Russia, we love Russia kind of thing. We don't. But there were reasons beyond them just waking up one morning and saying, we're going after Ukraine. The thing in Israel was not a threat to Hamas. Hamas launched an all-out terrorist attack on the nation of Israel, and Israel has been defending herself ever since. The two are not the same. If you've got moral clarity, you can see that. If you don't have moral clarity and you've got a fogged up mind about Israel or a fogged up mind about the way the world works, then you won't see that. Just an opinion, just a thought. The two are not the same. The two are not the same. But people try to make it. They try to make it the same, and it's not. So Peggy, your question is okay. I mean, it's a good statement, but let me tell you, it's all demonic. It's all demonic. The devil himself is gleeing when people die. One of the things in Catherine's book, I heard again today, and I've heard it before, Satan takes his power. He literally gains strength demonically when people die, and he kills people, and he allows nations to kill each other. He thrives on the death of others. He thrives on the destruction of others. He thrives on fear. He thrives on carnage. He thrives on chaos. He's thriving tonight in this Russian-Ukraine thing. Folks, do you realize there's been close to 1 million people on both sides that have died? I mean, Rwanda, it took Rwanda less than 3 months to kill 1.3 million of its citizens back in 1994. It's taken Russia and Ukraine about 3 years to do the same. So, that's why. That's why. That's why. Any other questions tonight? Glenda Yoakley says, look at the estates Zelensky has purchased in various countries and his wife's 4 million Bulgari brought in recent years. Yeah, well, Glenda, it's a given that money has flowed to the Zelenskys. I personally tend to believe that he is so scared, and then James pointed it out, but I've heard it today too in other media outlets, that Zelensky is very, very, very concerned about what they're going to find. If he was to step down right now, that's why he's not going to give up power and so forth. But anyway, I hope that you... your point is well taken. Your point is well taken. A couple of stories tonight that we've not really had a chance to talk about. We're going to talk about this more tomorrow night because we're out of time tonight. We've been going an hour. It's 11:30. I'm not going to keep it at midnight. Tomorrow night, I want to talk about several things. Joy Reid is in trouble tonight. She's accusing the Jews of starting COVID. There's been some religious voices that have done the same. Sadly, we're going to talk about that. You folks down our dear friend Cleo Cleotis, and our Australian friends, you've got a tropical cyclone, Alfred, that is headed straight for you, and the news agencies are calling it destructive. And 4 million residents have been told to embrace for at least 3 days of power outages in the southeast part of Australia. Australia is cyclones in the southern hemisphere, hurricanes in this one. The winds go clockwise, and the southern hemisphere hurricanes rotate counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere. Alfred is going to be a bad amigo. So our prayers for safety for you folks down under, Cleo, her family, all of you. We got Laura, Harriet Hunter, others down there. in that region. There was somebody else that was on our in our chat room from time to time that lives down under. I can't think of their name right now, but we know definitely Cleo. She's right in the path of it. So our prayers tonight for her and her family for safety. It's supposed to hit this week sometime. We'll be following that story tomorrow night. We got a tornado outbreak that is headed for the southern part of the country tomorrow. First one really of the year. And they're concerned in Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, going into Alabama tomorrow night. Possibly up here in Tennessee, we're going to mainly get high winds. Maybe not the tornadoes tomorrow night late here. But we'll be keeping an eye on that. And then the other story we're going to talk about a little bit, it's going to be interesting, is the total, we've got a total lunar eclipse that is going to turn the moon blood red on March the 14th and 15th. And what's ironic about that, that is Purim weekend. That is Purim weekend. So we're going to talk with you about that tomorrow night and this week. We may have a faith guest on Wednesday night to chat with us about that. Very prophetic in nature. So that will be going on. Alrighty, listen, we're grateful that you've been with us tonight. I wish we could keep you longer. I've been going all day today, and please come back and be with us tomorrow. We'll be back in the morning for the Bible study. Roger, do I think Trump will support the UK? Roger, I'll tell you what, if they continue to do what they're doing with Ukraine, no, I don't. Trump's a different kind of leader. Trump is willing to stand up to these crazy left-wing woke regimes, and let me rephrase your question, Roger, like this: do you think the UK is going to stand with America in this? I don't. Look, Zelensky was over there basically today or yesterday, Saturday, after he left Trump, and he was getting patted on the back by Starmer as if he was the hero. And it was a slap. It was, and Starmer, what made it hypocritical is him and Zelensky both were just in that same Oval Office. Starmer was in that office just a couple of days before. And to Trump's face, he was like, yeah, everything's great. We're going to support you. Yeah. And then, Zelensky goes over there and they're high-fiving, and don't worry about it, Vladimir, whatever your name is. We're going to give you all this money and we're going to help you. And Starmer is telling the Brits tonight they're going to send troops over there. So, no, I don't think Trump would do it, but I think the other question is, do you think the UK is going to stand with us? I don't think they will. That's just an opinion. I may be wrong. Lori Fortichak, good to see you, dear. So good to see you guys down in Jacksonville. It really was. And I hope you'll be back tomorrow night. It's good to see you, friend. And Peggy, it was a great show. Thank you. And anyway, listen, we've had 96-4. And I want to just say again tonight, we have 102 votes. So that means 4 out of 102 said they didn't like the way Trump handled things Friday in the White House. McFiles Forum at gmail.com. Tell me why you don't like what Trump did. I'm just curious. We'll talk about it tomorrow night. God bless you. God bless your families. God bless this great nation of America. Thanks to James Akers tonight. Thanks to Teresa Baxter. That was a special Monday Night Smack earlier tonight. I'm tired. I'm done. I have been going all day. Been driving home. But I gave you 2 hours tonight. So may the Lord bless you. I'll see you back here in the morning on the Bible study and our show tomorrow night, Tuesday night. Who we're going to have? We're not sure who we're going to have, but we'll have somebody. I know one person to be here. Some old gray-headed dude called Chris McDonald. And I hope you'll join him for another great McFiles Tuesday night Barn Burner. Have a good night, everybody.